Hey, what up, everybody? It's your host Ryan Sketch here at Sketchbook Audio. Hey, listen, I've I've been tinkering with this idea, and I can't believe it took me this long to figure out that I could just do it this way and not have any issues with doing video here for Sketchbook Video. I'm not going to call it that. We're going to keep it with Sketchbook Audio just because I don't want to get everything confused. I'm going to bounce back and forth between podcast and video. Today I really wanted to do video because a good friend of mine, shout out to you, Jay and Jamie, have asked me to do a couple times now more of a deep dive on the Dodge Charger SRT Banshee. And I think it's actually like Dodge Charger Daytona SRT Banshee. There's so many names in that thing. So I really wanted to do that, and I wanted to show you guys some pictures. And then while we're going through some of that stuff, well, actually, before we get into that stuff, I wanted to drop a couple little topics that have popped up. There's not a lot going on in the auto industry. There's, as far as like concepts go and new releases and new reveals, it's not really happening right now. It's a little slow, but it's probably because right now we are currently building up to the bigger portions of the auto show season. Normally right around this time we would have the Detroit Auto Show. It's not going to happen in the winter anymore. That is going to happen in the summer, and I believe this year it's either going to be in somewhere between July and September, but my guess is it's somewhere closer to August. But so we're going to take a look at whatever there is currently going on right now. And one of those things actually happens to do with shoes. So stay tuned because we're going to have a good talk about this. And then we're going to dive deep into the Dodge whatever Banshee. So stay tuned. All right, we are back. Thanks for sticking around. If you didn't catch the intro, basically we are going to talk about a couple little things that are happening because the auto industry is kind of taking a little bit of a break right now. Not a whole lot going on. But there are a lot of other little things that are happening outside of the auto world that we could talk about. CES happened a few weeks ago, so that was really big. There was a lot of news that came out of that. And the Chicago Auto Show is next, and I will be there. We will be going live, and it's going to be a good time there. So if, we're going to dive into it right now. Let's just, screw it. We're just going to dive right in. As you can see currently on my desktop, there is this article about ASICs and their sneakers that are using recycled airbags and steering wheels. That's pretty cool. But the reason I wanted to bring this up was because there are a lot of things that could happen in the automotive industry, but that don't. And that's more or less because automakers are focused on making cars. But it doesn't mean that wasted material, or like at a plant or at some of the tier 1 suppliers, or demolished cars, totaled cars, scrap cars, whatever, that their parts have to die right then and there. They don't. A lot of that material can be reused, whether it's the upholstery on the seats, the carpet, any of the plastic can be melted down. For the most part, it can be melted down and turned into fibers, whatever. There's a lot of things that could happen, but it's really cool to see that ASICS is doing something, and it's a shoe company. It's a very popular, a little bit pricey, but very, I think they're podiatry, orthopedic, whatever. They're really good for your feet and for your back. So they are using airbags, recycled airbags, so airbags that have deployed or airbags that were scrapped, and then they deploy them safely, and then they take that material and they use them for shoes. That's actually pretty genius because there's not much else you can do with airbag material that I know of. And you would just think that, like, okay, the airbag's deployed, toss it, right? No. You could definitely use that material. It's expensive material. You could use it for something that needs that kind of support, that kind of durability. And what better way to use it than in a shoe? I'm excited to actually see if anybody else takes on this task and starts using materials like this for future things. If you're not aware of what happened for the past like 10 years, there's this company called Takata. Takata made airbags for just about every automaker imaginable. And unfortunately, they pretty much went bankrupt, and I think they are completely gone. They made a bunch of airbags that hurt a lot of people, killed some people even, actually, and it's really terrible. But It makes you wonder, okay, well, could we do something with the rest of the materials that are in the defective airbags? Could we do something good out of something that's pretty bad? And I think the answer is yes. Yes, there's plenty that can be done. Um, I mean, I don't know. Maybe could you make hoses for firefighting? Could you make rope to save and rescue people? Could you make medical equipment out of some of the material? I don't know. But that's one cool thing about being a product designer, an industrial designer, an automotive designer. You get to think about these things. You get to be really creative. I mean, you could easily take some of that material and turn it into backpacks and then, donate them, give them to kids in Africa or wherever that need materials like that. You could probably use the material as like a canvas and sell it to artists that can't afford to spend a ton of money on really good canvas. I don't know. The possibilities are endless and limitless, and it's really cool to see a shoe company make use out of this. Now, they're not the first ones to take material from whether it's cars or just plastic waste or wherever and turn it into something like a shoe. In fact, let me actually show you this shoe because I love this one. Okay, so this is the yeah, this is such a cool shoe. This is the Nike Space Hippie. And this is just one of them. I think they made like 3 or 4 different kind. And you can see in the soles of the shoe are all these specks of color. Now, I don't know how much of this is 100 or is recycled material, but there's a ton. They're just little tiny fibers in, not all plastic or rubbers can be broken down and used over again to make certain things, but sometimes you can. Like, for instance, they have like a filler. It's this grayish blue material, which could be recycled material. And then they have all this extra stuff, which is just a color accent. It's just a style, a design. And, it's a little pop of color, and then it all just comes from fibers from clothes or other shoes that were broken down and, are usable in some way, shape, or form. So I really like what Nike did. And then the fibers for the shoe itself, there's hundreds of different colors. Now, most of it is, I don't know, dyed gray, or somehow they managed to get it gray, but there's little specks of color, little, and none of these are the same. Not one of these matches another one. They're close, but no two are 100% alike. And I think that makes it a much more valuable item than shoes that are identical, no matter how they're made or what athlete wore them or whatever. So this is a shoe I'm probably not going to wear. I bought it because I wanted to be able to think about the possibilities for the future of waste, really. And this is a good reminder that waste doesn't just have to end up in landfills. It doesn't have to end up in oceans. It can be a shoe, and it could be really cool. And these are actually really comfortable too. I do like when I've walked around these in my house a couple times. I do like them. But then I have other shoes that it's almost 100% virgin material, and I don't really see a difference. I don't see any reason that I should continue to buy shoes that are made from 100% virgin material, or even like 15, 20, 30%. Give me a fully recycled product, and if it's put together well, it's probably going to last all the same. So anyways, I really appreciate that ASICS is doing this, and I think it's a great step in the right direction, and I hope other companies take notice and start doing similar things. There's a lot of other products out there that are being made from recycled materials, and Fisker is actually doing a phenomenal job of it. Not only are they making car parts out of recycled materials, those recycled materials aren't coming out of trash cans, they're coming from the ocean. They're pulling nets in, they're using recycled materials that they find on the beach, stuff that is actually usable, like a plastic bottle, a Coke bottle, a water bottle, whatever it may be, and they're turning it into really nice materials for a car. And their cars really aren't that expensive. The base price on a Fisker Ocean is $37,000. That's pretty good, and it's made here in America, so the car actually qualifies for that $7,500 tax credit. Then you can get into the Fisker Extreme, which I think is like 60-some thousand. And yeah, that is more expensive, but given the amount of recycled content that's inside the vehicle, I think it makes a very strong case to buy that car as opposed to, say, I don't know, the Mustang Mach-E or the Polestar 1 or 2. Not that those cars don't use recycled materials or that they don't use synthetic materials for like their leather and whatnot, but I don't think they use as much as the Fisker. Now, I could be wrong, but from what I understand just reading the reports, they don't use as much. A lot of it is still virgin. And, you're still doing your part by having an electric car versus a big V8 Mustang. But it will be really nice to see other automakers following suit and making cool products and really good products out of recycled material, even maybe out of their own vehicles from the past. I keep saying this to other designers, and I've actually said this in some meetings when I was working for General Motors. If General Motors really wanted to make a big impact, I think what they should do, instead of just making the Hummer EV, I think what they should do is buy back as many Hummers that are, like the H1 and then the H2 and the H3. They should find as many that are completely garbage, disabled, or have like 200,000 miles on them. Buy them all back, destroy them, and use a lot of the materials in the new Hummers. I think that would be a great idea. And or if you want to keep them on the road, like sell them at a decent price to a company that can retrofit them to be electric vehicles. They are one of the biggest gas guzzlers and emitters of carbon dioxide, and I think more could be done to be more responsible going forward. And GM did do a good job of sourcing some recycled materials for certain things, using synthetic leathers instead of cowhide, but we have tons of material that's just sitting in landfills, or worse, in oceans, or maybe even in space. I don't know. There's probably a bunch of debris floating around in space. Let's do something with this waste and make it new. It can be done. Just look at that shoe that I showed you. Look at what ASICS is doing with airbags. It's an exciting future endeavor, and I hope that a lot more companies take notice and just jump in and join. All right, you know what? Like I said, there's not a lot of car stuff going on, so we're going to dive into that Dodge Charger and just... Oh, you know what? Actually, there is one thing, because I thought this was awesome. Maserati finally gave us an interior view of their Gran Turismo, which, by the way, there is a ice-powered one as well as a fully electric one, and wow. I mean, this car is just stunning. So you got the Modena, you've got the Gran Turismo Trofeo. Trofeo, I believe, is their fastest one and the most powerful one. And then there's another one, and I cannot remember how to pronounce it, but it is their fully electric one. And here we go. Okay, so this is cabin shots of the Trofeo and the Modena. Again, it's an ice powered. It's got a big engine in it. But look at that interior. It's arguably one of my favorite interiors, just the Gran Turismo in general, because it gives you that sort of dual cockpit without it looking too much like the Mustang. It's just, it doesn't give the driver as much attention as I thought this car should, but maybe it didn't need to. I think maybe Maserati, being as luxurious as it is, doesn't need to give the driver all the attention. The passenger is equally involved in the experience of a Maserati drive, and this is a gorgeous interior. Now, the tan and black, not my favorite, because it's not like it's more of like a walnut color or an almond color. Not my favorite color combination, but the materials used in this car, these metals, these really well crafted materials, just looks amazing. One thing I noticed though that I thought was interesting, and it's probably not it's good and bad. Previous Maseratis actually used some Chrysler 300 bits and pieces and window switches, the Uconnect 4, a couple other little bits and pieces here and there, but like I think the e-brake lever. But when you look at this, if you look at these vents, they're really gorgeous. I like how it's this seamless line that goes across, and you have these little dials that open and close the vents. But if you look at the Dodge Hornet and the Alfa Romeo Tonale vents, and I think the new Dodge Durango, they're very similar. Now, it's not a bad thing in the grand scheme of things, because it's a good working, aesthetically pleasing, it feels naturally like metal. So it's a good look. But for a Maserati person who's just spent, I don't know, 150,000 to 180,000, maybe even 200,000 on this car, they might not want to know that their products exist in a Tonale or a Dodge Dart or even a Dodge Durango. Who knows? I don't know. It wouldn't be a big deal to me. It works. It looks good. The materials are there. These seats are stunning. Just comfortable as hell. I like this little stamp on the side because this is all leather. But it says since 1914. Gorgeous diamond stitching with... And it's not just a diamond stitching that is this whole way down. It's a diamond stitching that changes in size. Like, it starts off real small here, then it gets bigger and bigger, and then at the very bottom, it gets massive, and then it actually kind of fades. Your seats are really asymmetrical at the bottom, but they're symmetrical with the other side. You've got a lot of really nice touches here. Oh, just the stitching on this car alone make this thing, worth every penny. And I'm excited to see one of these in person, and hopefully I get to see this in Chicago. But Chicago is going to happen. I believe I'll be there the 9th or 10th, or the 10th and 11th. I don't remember when, but stay tuned for that, because we're going to have a lot of live footage. We're going to have some great photos that are going to go up. I'm going to do a video, and it's going to be great. Okay, so if you want, in the comments, I'll even post like a little question, because usually I'm able to post a sort of a little survey, what you think about the Maserati Gran Turismo interior. What colors do you think would look really good on this car? Personally, I think like a tan, like that orangish tan would look great, or black with a little bit of red, or just all red seats, but not more like a Merlot or Cabernet kind of red. I think that would look really nice, or something maybe like an eggplant, or even blue to really go with this, and go with the fact that it's more eco-friendly if you get the electric one. Or perhaps lime green, kind of like what Porsche does. Who knows? Lots of possibility, and I think overall Maserati nailed it with this design. It's elegant, it's sleek, it's sexy, it's still that Gran Turismo, Grand Touring GT kind of profile. And I can't wait to drive one of these, or even hear one. Okay, let's get down to the nuts and bolts of everything. So, these are just comments in the comment section. We're going to start off with this, and hopefully you get to see and hear some good stuff here. But a lot of people had a problem with the way the Charger sounds.
Hey. That is sick. What?
Right. Now you can hear that low rumbling like it's a car, a nice powered, a V8 powered car that is... Oh, there I am. I can actually see me in this video. That's funny. So the guy who's filming this is actually from a company called... and they do wide body kits for a lot of Dodge products, but... Oh, it's just a sexy car. I really like this.
Bro, that is amazing.
Yeah, you know what, and I agree with him. I think, at least from an aesthetic standpoint, it is amazing. It is a gorgeous, brawny, muscular, true to Detroit muscle, true to Dodge kind of performance. And, if you can get past the fact that it's electric and it doesn't have a V8 and it doesn't have a real exhaust, then it's the perfect car for any muscle car lover. It's just, you've got so many people who are anti-EV. This just doesn't help the situation at all. But maybe it does. Maybe eventually, at least with bodies that look like this, that are this big of like a classic throwback to, first and foremost, it's a coupe. It's a very big coupe. And it's got a hatch or a lift back anyways, so it's functional. It's got a big enough back seat for, you know, 2 more people, maybe 3 more people, but in this case it was actually two. It was two bucket seats in the back and then 2 in the front, and they're almost all the same. I think very close to being the same, so that's nice. It gives you that very sporty feel, but I think it's gorgeous. I love it. And I don't know if this site tells you all the details, but basically you've got a 800 volt electric vehicle. It's all-wheel drive. First thing for Charger, first thing for any performance muscle car is that all-wheel drive. Now, Corvette does now have an all-wheel drive. They've just revealed it. It's the E-Ray. It is a hybrid, though. It's not 100% electric. So it still has a big V8 engine, but it also has a hybrid powertrain. So it's got an electric motor. I don't know if it's 2 motors powering the front wheels, but the V8 powers the rear wheels. It's a lot of wizardry. There's, man, it's like 655 horsepower. It's a cool car. They didn't change too much about the car. There's some interior trim and color details that are different, but overall it's the same interior as just a straight up ICE powered one. But with this, you know, it's an all new car. This looks nothing like the current Charger. This looks nothing like the current Challenger, with the exception of this big wide grille. But I think this is even wider. I mean, this goes edge to edge. You've got this gorgeous white light that just shines as almost like a big old fog light throughout the night, and then the headlights are tucked away. You've got this arrow wing is what they call it. Now, Dodge isn't the only one to do this. Polestar has done this. A couple other car companies have done this. Maserati is doing this, where air flows through the grille and then goes up over the hood and then over the roof. That's there to keep air attached to the car to keep the car down, and then keep it going smoothly over the rest of the form of the car. Then you have air intakes here that go out the side. There's just so much stuff going on in here. But let's talk about this. Well, first of all, let's talk about the push to pass and the transmission, because both of these things are things that Dodge, along with the Fratsonic chamber, which we'll get to that in a minute, but these are all things that Dodge patented. They own the rights to this stuff now. You know, I'm sure other companies will come up with their own versions of it, but Dodge wanted you to feel like you weren't just driving an EV with one gear. They wanted you to feel like you had the ability to shift through real gears and feel like you're still driving that big Dodge Charger or Dodge Challenger with like the 8-speed ZF. But in this case, you know, you get this erupt transmission, and you know, you get that little bit of a jerk that a gear might actually give you, like actually shifting as a manual gear. And then you get this push to pass, which basically it gives you a little bit more electric charge, just jolted right to the wheels, and you just launch. And it's push to pass. You push it. Actually, I think what you do is you hold the paddle shifters together, and then you just floor it, and the car will accelerate way faster than it normally would if you didn't push those paddles together. And then that R wing was the front. It's this, so it's kind of hard to see, but this piece on the hood is actually kind of floating in between the bumper panels. So this is like an H. If you imagine this being a big giant H, then this panel floats over it, so it almost makes like an A. I don't know why they called it the R wing, but whatever. It pulls air in and it goes up over the body, like I had mentioned. It's just freaking insane. Okay, let's talk about the thing that's probably going to make or break people wanting to switch over from an all gas powered V8 to something that's all electric, and you don't get a real exhaust. There's no emissions. There's no engine that's rumbling. It is just electric motors that are moving seamlessly together and giving you all-wheel drive, which is really freaking awesome for a Charger, or any muscle car for that matter. And then you get this thing called the Fratsonic chamber. Now, the Fratsog is the logo. It's the little like and I don't know if there's a way to show you what that Fratsonic looks like. Let me just Google it here. Dodge Charger SRT Banshee. So if you can see this logo, okay, here it is. This diamond, triangle, logo, whatever. It doesn't mean anything. Fratzog, from what I've read about the history of that word, it doesn't mean anything. The designers came up with something really cool. It's this triangle that's split. It doesn't mean anything. But from a historical standpoint, for those who know that Charger, that the 60s and 70s Chargers, and having that logo on the car, for them, it does mean a little bit of something. It's history. It's an homage back to that, and it's pretty cool. So it's in the grille, it's in the taillight, and it's in some other little features on the inside of the car. But what they did here for this new Charger is they used that term. Not only did they include the logo in a lot of places, but they included the name Fratzog into their exhaust. And in this case, it's called the Fratzonic Chamber Exhaust. And basically what it does is it produces a lot of sound. It sounds a little bit like the whine of a supercharger on a Hellcat. And it's basically sucking in air, and it's amplifying the sound of the electric motor. Electric motors do make noise. It's just not very loud. But if you could amplify that somehow and it, maybe tweak it a little bit, you can make it sound like a muscle car. It's just not, I don't know. But 126 decibels is insane for an electric car. And it's at the same level as a Hellcat, if not higher. So you're still going to be able to get quite a bit of roar and rumble. It's just now, I guess it's coming from a speaker more so than it is coming from exhaust tips. I love it. It's wizardry and technology and engineering that I can get behind. I like it. And I'm all for going EV or at least plug-in hybrid. But in this case, how else are you going to get those people who are so obsessed with big V8 muscle cars and an actual exhaust to like this? It's a tough decision. No longer will you really be able to get under the hood of your car and tweak things, with the exception of maybe the suspension. And that might even be tough too, depending on how they do the electric motors. You might have this full encapsulated system where the motors are inside the shocks or inside the just whatever. And it gets really difficult to modify that in any way. You're not just changing out struts or springs. You're changing out a whole assembly. Now, the best way to understand that is really to look at like the Hummer EV and its whole entire motor, not the battery. The battery sits in the middle, underneath the passengers, basically. It's a big, giant wafer plate thing. It's super heavy. But in the front and rear, you have two modules. You have the front and then you have the rear module. Each module has everything from the motor to the control arms, the sway bars, all that good stuff, the shocks, the springs, the rotors, the calipers, and the wheels. It's all on one module. So all they do is install that module, which is already pre-assembled prior to making it to the assembly line, and just stick it on. They bolt it in, and that's that. Plug a few wires in, and that's the end of that. But so you're gonna be limited in how much modification you do. Surely you can modify the heck out of the exterior. You could put a spoiler on it. You could do a bunch of things. You could put graphics. You could change out the wheels. But they're limiting how much you can do to the engine by just getting these stage upgrades. And basically those are, we'll call them software updates. You can go to your dealership if it's a licensed direct connection dealership. Not all FCA or Stellantis dealerships here in the United States are direct connection certified. Basically what that is any of the cool performance parts that are going to come out for future Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge products are the performance ones are going to be under this direct connection. And if you want to maintain your warranty and get it installed professionally, you will go to a Dodge dealership that can do that. Otherwise, if you buy the parts and you take them home and you install them yourself, the warranty doesn't exist. It's gone. So it's trying to bring people back into the body shop, into the showroom, into wherever to get all these things. And they want people to upgrade their cars. So they're trying to make it easier for you, really. But yeah, I guess it does take away some of the fun of getting to wrench on your car yourself. But Gone are oil changes. Gone are some other fluid changes. You're just not going to have to do it. All you're going to have to do is worry about the battery that you might have to replace later down the road if you keep the car longer than 10 years, which the warranty covers most electric cars for 10 years. So, there's a lot of other things you can do with this car. You're just not going to have as much that you would do on an ICE-powered vehicle. And there's pros and cons to that. I like wrenching on my car just as much as the next guy, but if I didn't have to, it saves you. It saves you money. It saves you time. It saves my knuckles. I was just trying to take the strut bar off of my car the other day, and I damn near broke my knuckles because I couldn't get the nut undone, and my hand just crashed right into this piece of sheet metal, which, by the way, was bare and was kind of sharp. So I was lucky I hit it right on the flat surface of it rather than if it was tilted down or if my knuckles went over it. I would have shaved off my entire fingers and knuckles. It would have been bad. So, depending on how you want to look at it, there's pros and cons, and I'm all for the pros. I think there's a lot to go with this, and it could be a very, very fun car. Some other things to note. We won't look at this one. I'm going to show you this one. So Dodge showed off at CES a red one, along with a video that showed a bunch of other models. They are going to have several versions. So let me see if I can find the video. Dun, dun, dun. Is this the one? It was November. Oh man, where is it? Okay, well, let's talk about the powertrain a little bit more if it's in there. I don't normally talk about powertrain here on Sketchbook Audio because it has really nothing to do with design. But, it is something that's noteworthy for an EV because depending on whether it's a plug-in hybrid or a fully electric vehicle or a BEV, battery electric vehicle, your placement of those motors, your placement of the batteries, a lot of things can change and allow you to enhance the interior of the car, but also enhance things like cargo capacity on the exterior, like a frunk or a bigger trunk. In this case, you get a full fastback and you get a liftback too. So, anyways, they're talking about power in the. Man, it looks like over 372 horsepower would be the start. So you get. You start out at a 400 volt drivetrain and then you work your way up to the Banshee's 800 volts. There's something in between, and then you can go to the dealership that has the direct connection and you can increase that even more. So it's right here. It says Daytona powertrains second tier are rumored to start in the 590s. And you can do the stage upgrades and get between 630 and 670 horsepower. That's nuts. And these are instantaneous numbers too, right? As soon as you put your foot to the pedal, you're just launched back in your seat and it feels amazing. It's a rush. It can get away from you a little bit, but knowing that it's got all-wheel drive really helps because it helps maintain the stability of the car rather than all of this just getting dropped down to the rear wheels. But you can see this one's got new wheels. It's got a different paint color. I believe the interior was tweaked a bit so it didn't look as conceptual as the initial black or dark gray one that I got to see at Speed Week. But where is... man, they showed off... There's like a video that shows... so these were the two that they've shown so far. But there was a video that they showed at CES that talks about the different... Oh, here it is. The DCE stage kits concepts. And so you start out with... Now, the cool thing is Dodge has typically shown off vehicles with a number on the side of the car, whether it's 440, 392, 375, 350, whatever. That was the cubic inches of the engine. Now what they're doing is you're going to see that a similar number, but that number is going to be the equivalent of, or it'll be relative to the voltage of the car. So you're going to get everything from the base model at 340, and then a stage kit that's going to get you to 370 or 400, and then there's going to be a 440, which is the 440 double barrel. I forget what it was called back then, but that is a iconic number, the 440. And then you'll get the 470 stage 1 and stage 2 500 kit, and then you go to the Banshee, which is an 800 volt, and there could be a stage 1 and a stage 2 that jump that between 900 and even over 1,000 horsepower. Insane. Just blows the socks off of the Mustang Mach-E and really any other electric car that's come out, with the exception of it actually is a little bit over the Plaid, the Tesla Model S Plaid, but Lucid is up there in the 1,000 plus horsepower, and I mean Rimac, Navara. I mean, there's a lot of potential to be had here. So, we'll see what ends up actually happening. I don't see why Dodge would limit a lot of that, with the exception of maybe I don't know, cost or the battery availability. I don't know, but and then I don't even know exactly how it's going to work, or how do you go from 340 to 370 and 300 or and then 400. I don't know. Are they changing the battery? Are they just changing the way this software works? Are they changing like basically the ECU? I don't know. It doesn't say exactly how they do that, but what I do know is that it should be pretty easy to do. Your car wouldn't sit at a dealership for too long, because I don't think they're swapping out a lot of parts. But one cool thing I really liked was this interior. Now this is toned down quite a bit from the Banshee that they showed at the Speed Week, which was very futuristic and had a ton of LEDs. This whole thing right here, this wing here, had a lot of LEDs in it, and it was very conceptual. But this feels very possible, and more so, it actually feels like the interior of a I think it was a Peugeot, which is under the Stellantis umbrella now. So there is room for some sharing now, and I think that's why we're going to get something like this. Now, one thing I really liked about this interior, as opposed to like the new Mustang, is this actually feels more like a cockpit. Now, I know Ford said that it feels like a fighter jet cockpit in their new Mustang. I didn't get that. When I sat in it, it felt like a different Mustang. Previous Mustangs have had a dual cockpit with the center stack turned just a little bit towards the driver, but it always had that double hump. Corvettes have kind of had that too, but if you want a true driver-centric cockpit, you got to look at the new mid-engine Corvette. The C8 just feels like everything is geared towards the driver and nobody else. The passenger's almost secondary, like a complete afterthought almost. Just they get a nice seat, they get soft materials, but they don't get anything else. Everything is focused towards the driver. Now in this case, everything does feel like it's very much aimed right at the driver. Whether or not people really like these big giant screens that are tacked on, so far a lot of the things that I've read is not just about the Charger, but a lot of other cars, is that this tablet kind of screen just being tacked on looks a little, well, tacky. It looks like an afterthought. It doesn't look as good as it being just stuck in the center of the dash, kind of like, where is it? The trophy, not the Trofeo, the Trofeo, but the Maserati Gran Turismo, where the screen was actually inside the dash and there was stuff surrounding it and whatnot. But you know what? I like this. I think this looks good. I think this feels very driver-centric, and you get these cool badges. You get a lot of LED lighting to illuminate this stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that's tied in from the exterior to the interior. Like, for instance, these little slats are actually on the Fratsonic chamber, front and rear. So, it's for air to pass through and just be guided in a certain way. So you get a lot of that stuff inside and out, and that's a nice added touch. I also like how this badge doesn't look like it's just slapped on. It's actually molded into this. Now, how they do that, I don't know, because if you don't have a direct connection right away, a stage 1 or 2 upgrade. How does this get slapped in there? Does this whole piece pop out? Does just this I can't talk. Does just this piece pop out? I don't know. But I'd imagine it's not too hard, but it doesn't look like an afterthought. They could have taken this badge and just glued it on here, I guess, and it would have looked horrible, right? This looks very unified and very together. You get this nice heads-up display here. The steering wheel is really badass. Everything here is turned towards the driver, and it feels like a futuristic version of the Challenger or the old school Charger's interior. You just don't get the gauges that we used to have, but it's probably a better design overall than what some people have given us, as far like the Ford Mustang Mach-E. It's just a tiny little screen that sits on a flat ledge, whereas this actually has a cowl going over it. There's some design around it. I don't know. I like this layout much better than what we've seen a lot of other automakers do. And, it's a muscle car. It should have enough throwbacks to old muscle cars to get people encouraged to switch from an ICE to this. Make it as seamless as possible. And there are some cars that have just missed that mark. Like the Mustang Mach-E, yeah, it kind of has a dual cockpit look, but it's very flat. It's very stale. The materials are great. The soundbar is really cool. It doesn't look bad whatsoever. It's just, I don't get Mustang out of it. I get maybe Ford Fusion or something else. But, this is just a really cool design, and I can't wait for this to actually hit production. I do, and I don't quote me, but I think from what I remember at Speed Week, or hearing in other places, that yes, we are going to get an electric muscle car from Dodge, but we are also going to continue to get ICE-powered ones that are either more efficient or hybrid in some way, shape, or form, which obviously would be more efficient. But I don't believe ICE is gone completely. The bigger Hemis are gone. Those are dead. The Hellcat, the Demon, all those big engines are dead. But we're going to start to see the Hurricane twin turbo inline six in a lot of cars. And hopefully, right now, I think it's just the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer that are getting that engine. But I thought I heard rumors or saw things on the news that, don't quote me, but that some Dodge car is going to get that powertrain as well. And then it was capable of being mated to a hybrid powertrain anyway. So, we shall see. But tell me in the comments, guys, what do you think about this car? Is this the future? Is it a good future? Is it a bad future? What could Dodge do to persuade you to switch from a big V8 to this? You're never going to get an exhaust, but could they do something more with the exhaust? Personally, a lot of other electric cars have gone with these weird spacey themes and sounds, ones that are even orchestrated by famous producers, music producers. And while that's cool and all, they don't sound like a car. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm glad they don't sound like the Jetsons. But it could. It might as well, right? The Kona EV actually has a really cool sound. But some other cars like the EV6 and a few other ones, you're able to change the sound. And I think that's a really cool idea. But for Dodge, and even the new Fiat 500 Abarth E, it's got a really solid sound for an electric car. I was really surprised how mean that thing sounds. And I'm going to be honest, I'll buy one in a heartbeat. As soon as that thing comes to the United States, sign me up. I will do it. I don't need something this big, but I would love one. I just hope that it's affordable, because right now that's probably the biggest thing killing anybody's possibilities of getting an EV is the cost. The sheer cost of it is insane. But there is a reduced cost of ownership, and that's pretty cool. You don't have to worry about oil change. You still have to worry about tire rotations and putting in windshield wiper fluid like that, but transmission fluid, you don't have to worry about. Brake fluid, you might not have to worry about as much or as quickly, because you're able to slow the car down just with one pedal driving. There are a lot of other things that just kind of go out the window, and that makes spark plugs. You don't have to replace spark plugs, I don't think. You don't have to worry about maintenance on the transmission. I don't know how many other things there are that are eliminated, but the cost of ownership should go down for EV owners. Yes, some EVs are breaking down, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's got that problem. Gas-powered cars had that problem when they first came out. So give it some time. It's going to fix itself. And, you know, but what would make you buy this car if you're hell-bent on owning a V8 or a V10 or a twin-turbo 6 and that's it? Never going to anything else. What would convince you that this is the right move? Aside from the government mandating it. I don't know. But for me, I'm sold on it. I would buy one of these in a heartbeat if I had the money. I wouldn't go for the big, expensive Banshee, but the base model would be plenty fine. Because remember, that voltage is pretty well in line with the amount of horsepower, which is more than what the Hemi is able to produce. So, you know, we'll see. But anyways, okay, so that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Shout out to my designer friends over at FCA or Stellantis that have drawn some of these pictures in my office. I love their artwork. I love seeing what those guys do. I went to school with a lot of them, and I learned from a lot of them. So anyways, take the rest of this weekend to draw, sketch, do something, learn something new. I'm still working on my environmental art. I'm going to be doing a demo on one tomorrow. And yeah, keep sketching. And of course, like I always say, be good to one another because life is just too short to be a mean person. Help somebody. Go find some way you can help, whether it's a family member, a parent, or a neighbor. And let's just help improve this world. All right, until next time, your host Ryan Sketch signing off. We will see you next time.